There are several controversial issues and scandals in Formula 1, but this might turn out to be the greatest of them all. Ex-Formula 1 driver Felipe Massa has just made serious allegations against the Formula 1 Governing Council, the FIA. And from what has been revealed, there's a chance Lewis Hamilton will lose his first ever Drivers' Championship title. Yes, it's that bad. So what did Massa reveal, and what does it mean for the FIA? Let's go into details. The final race of the 2008 Formula 1 season was one of the most dramatic races in history, and that was because there was a really close point gap between the two championship contenders, Felipe Massa and Lewis Hamilton. Most people were certain that Massa would cop the win as he was in the lead, but his team, Ferrari, messed up the pit stop by leaving the nozzle in the car, thereby earning him a penalty. So, this delay gave Hamilton the opportunity to cross the checkered line before him, and this ended up being the starting point for all the British drivers' other championship titles. For Massa, things turned out entirely different. From that year, he never got to win another Grand Prix, let alone fight for a championship title ever again. But now, Massa is here with claims that he was cheated out of the 2008 championship title. And it has nothing to do with the final race, but the controversial incident that occurred at Singapore that year. During the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, Massa was well on his way to winning the race, and it looked like nothing would go wrong, but suddenly, the safety car appeared. And that was because Nelson Piquet of the Renault team had crashed into a wall. The appearance of the safety car disturbed Massa's race, and Fernando Alonso, Renault's teammate, went on to win the race. Looking at it from this point of view, nothing strange happened. It was just an unfortunate incident and Alonso got lucky. But the next year, Nelson came out revealing shocking details about the race, and everything became controversial. In 2009, Nelson revealed that he had crashed the car on purpose, due to instructions from his team bosses, and the guilt was weighing him down, so he had to reveal it. That became the Crashgate scandal. Massa and other members of his Ferrari team were outraged by the information, but they thought it was pointless taking any legal actions because the championship title had already been awarded to Hamilton. However, Renault got banned from F1, and everyone thought that was that. Until Bernie Ecclestone made a shocking revelation earlier this year. Felipe Massa was probably sipping some Brazilian tea when he came across the statement former F1 Supremo Bernie Ecclestone made during an interview in Germany. The 90-year-old man had casually mentioned that he felt sorry for Massa because he and other key officials had been aware that Piquet crashed deliberately before handing the championship to Hamilton, but just chose to ignore it so as to protect the sport from a scandal. We wanted to protect the sport and save it from a huge scandal. I still feel sorry for Massa today. He was cheated out of the title he deserved, while Hamilton had all the luck in the world and won his first championship. Imagine how mad Massa must have been to find out that he could have fought for his championship all along, but he decided that it was better late than never. And now, Formula 1 is about to get sued for every penny he ought to have won. The Reuters news agency revealed that the Brazilian ex-driver has sent a formal letter known as Letter Before Claim to the Formula 1 Governing Council, stating that he must be duly compensated for losing his championship title due to their dishonesty. The letter, which was sent to Formula 1 CEO Stefano Domenicali, was his former boss at Ferrari, and FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem states that, simply put, Mr. Massa is the rightful 2008 Drivers' Champion, and F1 and FIA deliberately ignored the misconduct that cheated him out of that title. Mr. Massa was the victim of conspiracy committed by individuals at the highest level of F1, together with the FIA and Formula 1 management. The letter further mentioned that the 42-year-old couldn't quantify the extent of his loss, because besides the financial damage, there was also the moral impact and reputation damage, so he needed to be well compensated. Indeed, there was a reputation damage because the final race of the 2008 championship had been in Brazil, and several Brazilians came out in numbers to watch the son of their land be crowned the champion, only for him to be finished in second place. So what does this mean for Lewis Hamilton? Hamilton has probably been quivering in his pants since he heard the news because there's a high chance he'd have to forfeit the championship title if Massa pushes for it. But for now, it seems Massa doesn't intend to hurt Hamilton because none of it was his fault, but is bent on being well compensated by the FIA for his loss. But what really happened in Singapore? And why did Renault have Piquet to fake a crash? After Renault won the championship title both in 2005 and 2006, things became difficult for the team, most especially due to the global financial crisis. Every firm and company was struggling to stay afloat, and for the members of the Renault team, it seemed like the end was near. The Renault team boss at the time, Flavio Briatore, called an emergency with other senior staff to tell them how bad things were. He said the parent company had informed him that they would have to pull out of Formula 1 the next year if they didn't win at least one Grand Prix for the rest of that season. The senior staff members were horrified by the news because there was no way they'd win a race since their car wasn't that impressive. So they began counting the days till the team had to leave F1, but that changed in Singapore. In Singapore, things were looking really good for the team, as their cars showed a significant improvement in pace due to the upgrades they introduced. Also, the newly formulated L fuel and the street venue was the perfect place for Alonso to showcase his skills. They also had high hopes that they could win the race, but at qualifying, Alonso suffered a major problem that had him starting 15th. The Spanish driver had found himself stranded due to a fuel feed problem at the beginning of his first Q2 lap, and that was what affected his qualifying results. The team were devastated afterwards, but they began searching for strategy options that would get him from 15th to 1st. All the initial suggestions made seemed unrealistic and unachievable. Then someone jokingly mentioned that they could have Alonso pit early and then have Piquet intentionally bring out a safety car to seal the pit lane, and by the time they were released, Alonso would be far ahead. Every other person laughed at this joke, saying it was a ridiculous idea, but Briatore asked in a serious tone if it was possible to do that. When he was assured that it was possible, he gave them a silent go-ahead to continue with the plan. The team immediately informed Piquet, and the Brazilian driver agreed to do it. Although, he later revealed that he had heard an underlying threatening tone that indicated that terrible things would happen if he refused, so he had no choice but to agree. The Singapore Grand Prix came and Massa was leading as usual. Just as planned, Alonso got pitted, really to avoid him being stuck with the others when Piquet pulled off his stunt. So, after Alonso pitted, Piquet waited to get out turning 17 when he applied high pressure on the throttle, and this led to the rear right tyre sliding into the barriers on the reconnaissance lap to the grid. The crash was so perfect that the medical team came running with their safety car. You'll be surprised to find out that Piquet had to practice the spin before actually doing it on the grid. It was that serious for the Renault team. The move paid off and Massa couldn't rejoin the race quickly. The only people that had pitted before Piquet's theatrics was Red Bull's driver Mark Webber and 2 other people. And since the safety car was present for 3 laps, Alonso had no serious competition for all that period. Massa even got the worst end of it, as his Ferrari team forgot to take out the fuel nozzle during his pit stop. He had continued driving with his fuel nozzle trailing behind him. When he later discovered it, he had to go back to have it removed. After that, he got penalised because the attachment of the fuel nozzle was a threat to other drivers. So, he ended up finishing 13th, while Hamilton, who was initially his major competition, finished 3rd, earning him the point that helped him win the championship title. From what has been discussed, you can see that Massa actually deserves to fight. Currently, Massa has stated that the Singapore Grand Prix result should be cancelled, so that he would get the championship. There's also the issue of the letter where he was given the FIA just 14 days to respond before he files the cases officially in court. He said he'd file the case in several courts in Europe till justice is served. I think it's fair that he gets well compensated because the FIA shouldn't have ignored such important information. But it seems a bit extra to award him the championship title now. It would hurt Hamilton, who had nothing to do with the whole scandal, and also destroy F1. Because everyone had lost in the past would start raising endless issues that the FIA would never be able to solve. So they should pay him, but leave the title for Hamilton. The FIA is yet to make any statement, as they might be properly weighing their options. However, the 14-day deadline is fast approaching, and we can't wait to see it unfold. So what do you think? Kindly let us know in the comment section. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video.